Welcome to the Pod of Inquiry, pushing the envelope for human understanding and optimization, the podcast for podiatrists. The Pod of Inquiry is designed to empower you with knowledge. What happens from there is up to you. Your host, Dr. Stephen Barrett, has designed this show to take you down some very deep rabbit holes, hopefully bringing you back out again, relatively unscathed, but cerebrally whipped, enabling a better understanding of all things worthy of inquiry. If you have more questions after the show, then that is good. The new discovery today many times was the new discovery 50 years ago, only to be suppressed or plainly ignored. Medicine and surgery can sometimes take a long while to get their paradigm shifted. We hope to have a lot of fun on this show and maybe destroy some ridiculous dogma along the journey. Thanks for joining the show today. Let's start spelunking.
Again, I'm very excited to have Dr. Dayan Goodenowe, part 2. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, I would highly encourage you to go back and review that before diving into this one. This episode, we deal with more of my testing results on his prodrome scan and how I can maximize my personal health by following his biomarkers and implementing different supplementation. So without any further introduction, please enjoy this conversation with Dr. Dayan Goodenowe. I'm going to screen share with you the testing that you just did for me, the prodrome scan report, and I think the audience will find this very interesting.
So prodrome scan is designed to be kind of looked at holistically. It interconnects itself. And typically when I go through a profile like this, sections 1 through 4 deal with those phospholipids. Remember I talked to you about phospholipids earlier in the podcast about membranes. And these main ones are these ethanolamines, 1A and 3A. So the phosphatidyl versions, these are what you get dietarily, right? And so you want those in the middle range. Those look pretty good. Those are where you want them to be. Okay. And then, so all the markers on the test are dealt with in percentiles and z-scores. Okay, we're not talking about absolute levels. We're trying to understand the equilibrium of the body. Okay, the absolute levels are not really relevant. It's saying how has the body re-equilibrated to your certain circumstances. And so what you see here is so 1B and 3B are your total plasmalogen levels. And you can see that they're lower than your phosphatidyl ethanolamines. Okay, so they should be on an average, they should be exactly the same. Those two lines should be lined right up because they'd be both at normal levels, right? Okay. Now the whole tide can go down, the whole tide can go up, but they should be, straight up.
Commensurate, right?
Right. And ideally, you want your plasmalogens to be higher than your phosphorethanolamines. You want the concentration of plasmalogens to be higher, because that's what your cells are going to be exposed to. So you have your plasmalogen levels are low, both in the choline pool and the ethanolamine pool. Then later we'll ask the question, do we know why? What could be the reason for this? Okay. The second part is your quality of the pool. And this looks at your omega-3, your DHA and EPA levels. Your peroxisomal beta oxidation. So DHA is made in your peroxisomes. You get some dietarily. And then EPA is also obtained dietarily, but your body can make DHA, and your body will break DHA down into EPA. So EPA is basically a biochemical product of DHA. And EPA is a small bit player. It's really almost irrelevant in human physiology for the most part. And so you can see it's kind of hanging backwards a little bit. So your DHA profile is actually not bad. You want to see for example, 2C, this is your Alzheimer's busting molecule. So 2C is a molecule that basically prevents Alzheimer's and neutralizes the ApoE4 genotype, for example, this one here. Okay. And you can see it is actually higher than your total plasmalogen. So this means that your DHA consumption is good. And that's confirmed down here in section 5. So this says that the quality of your phospholipids are also good. So you have good quality phospholipids, but you have just not enough of the plasmalogens.
Okay.
So section 5 deals with the 4 critical fatty acids, and we don't measure total fatty acids. It's not like a digestion of your entire blood or red blood cells or anything like that. We're measuring them on a very specific class of phospholipids. We're measuring them on the phosphocholine, and we're measuring the actual fully intact phospholipid. And we want to understand on that phospholipid the distribution of fatty acids. We get a very precise understanding of your fatty acid. How this is representative of what your cells would actually look like.
All right.
And you actually look really good here. So you want 5D, which is your DHA, your omega-3 long-chain plasmalogen. Arachidonic acid is your backup molecule in the human body. And you want it, but it's also pro-inflammatory. So you want that low. So what you've done here is perfect. You have a high level of DHA and it's driven your arachidonic acid levels down.
Okay.
And then the other thing we want to look at is this 5A and B. You kind of want your 5B elevated a bit, but these are good. This is not something to be concerned of. We do see when 5B drops down too much, it's a measure of fatty acid elongation. So your body will consume the omega-6 precursor, which is linoleic acid. And so we have a little bit of that. We'll ask that question in the next stage. But fundamentally, this is not bad. This is good. Your GTAs are made from your gut microbiome. They're very potent anti-inflammatory and very potent anti-cancer molecules. So the GTAs,
right?
These are made by your gut microbiome.
Okay.
And spread through your body. They're very potent anti-cancer, very potent anti-inflammatories. And when they get below 20%, your risk for colon and pancreatic cancer goes up a little bit. When it gets below 10%, your risk goes up significantly. So these are a bit on the low side. And so I typically recommend like a Ruteri, even Gerber Sue, that's a very gentle probiotic, can help elevate them sometimes.
Okay.
And in the meantime, take curcuminoids. And so because curcuminoids have very similar biological activity, and specifically curcuminoid 3, and that's why we have this. I sourced this source of high concentration BDMC. We call it prodrome GTA. So that's something for an option. But bottom line is you should get good quality curcuminoids in your diet. Okay. And keep a quick eye on iron levels. Your iron is excellent. Anemia is a big deal. It really reduces your ability to fight inflammation, and iron is such a critical thing. It's also kind of a good bellwether for other nutrients. When people become anemic, they're often, it affects other nutrients like your iron, your copper, selenium, zinc type of thing. So this looks good. So then this first page is kind of looking at overall levels of things. The second page deals with systems. Okay. The first one is the methyltransferase system. And we look at homocysteine. So homocysteine at 12 is a bit elevated. Okay, right. It's the borderline. But this can be tricked. So people can have low homocysteine because they're taking lots of B vitamins, for example. So we want to look at the reality of this homocysteine. It's a little bit elevated. Your ethanolamine and choline levels your cholines are lagging a bit behind. And you make the two main drivers of homocysteine is making phosphocholine through a phosphatidyl ethanolamine and methyltransferase system. So that's a bit low here. And then when you see single on a ceramide ratio like this means that you have some membrane digestion going on. So your body is stealing from Peter to pay Paul here, right? Okay. When sphingomyelins go down, ceramides go up, that means there is a choline deficiency in situ. So we definitely want to get you on phosphocholine supplementation. Okay. And we need to get this down. So you need to go on B12, methylfolate. I would even get on a little bit of betaine and creatine. No matter what, like your creatine is 1.2. What's your level of physical activity?
Pretty high.
Okay. So that's normal then. But we want to make sure you're taking creatine. It's probably the biggest thing in your life. So for men, you want to be at 1.1 to 1.2, which you are. But since you're physically active, you might want that even higher, 1.3 or 1.4. Okay. And females are usually down a couple points from there. But you should be on like 4 to 5 grams of creatine, especially if you're physically active and you're 65. You should be on 4 to 5 grams of creatine every day of your life, from here on in. Period.
All right.
Your body makes about 4 grams to 5 grams per day. Half of it's made in your kidneys. The other half of it's made in your liver. It's when your main methyltransferase sinks in the body. So that's one. So your methyltransferase system needs a little bit of tuning.
Okay.
Mitochondrial function actually looks really good. And if you're a highly physically active guy, that's probably why. So this is good. So you want to see this trend line down here. When your adrenic acid 9C starts creeping upwards, it means that your mitochondria, the fuel of your mitochondria is a little 2-carbon molecule called acetyl-CoA. And if your mitochondria can't burn it, it comes out. It's like a smoking engine. And the smoke is this adrenic acid. So if adrenic acid starts creeping up, it means that your mitochondrial function is not working. So this indicates that you've got good mitochondrial function. C-reactive protein is under 1. Excellent. GT is a bit low. Elongase activity is kind of, I'm not going to be too worried about that. That's basically a measure of this omega-6 utilization, like linoleic acid utilization.
Right.
Peroxisomal function. Okay, take a look at triglycerides are at 120. Okay, so as soon as triglycerides get over 100, it's an indicator that either you have mitochondrial insufficiency or peroxisomal insufficiency. Full stop, period. There is no other interpretation of that. And clearly your mitochondrial function looks good. So having slightly, and it's not bad, like it's not like, but anything over 100 indicates that that's just not exactly where you want. And if you're a physically active guy, you should clearly get this down. Right. So when we look at the peroxisomal function, we look at these plasmalogens, which are made in your peroxisomes. And we look at this DHA to EPA ratio, okay, which is underwater a little bit. So this indicates that your peroxisomal function is not up to snuff. And that's common at this age group. So you need to focus on not so much cardiovascular, okay, exercise, but get resistance training in your diet.
Okay.
And then the plasmalogens will fill in the holes. So you want to get on the omega-3 plasmalogens. So often when you see your HDL, total cholesterol is good, but your HDL is not bad at 54, but it's still kind of hovering on the low end. Like 50 is kind of like the bottom rung of this. And there's a trifecta in here. Like typically people that have higher triglycerides, low plasmalogens will have low HDL. And your choline levels, your phosphatidylcholine levels, even though they're fine, relative to your ethanolamines are still declined. So this methyltransferase system. So we want to get that HDL over 60. Okay.
Okay.
And the trifecta for elevating HDL levels are omega-3 plasmalogens, phosphatidylcholine, because it's the phosphatidylcholine is what drives the HDL system in your blood, and niacin. And this is where your uric acid is down at 4.3. And so when uric acid gets under 5, when it definitely gets under 4.5, you are fundamentally NAD deficient.
Okay.
So the formation, and uric acid is the human body's most important water-soluble antioxidant. Okay, uric acid is human vitamin C fundamentally. And now, do you take high doses of vitamin C?
No, I really don't.
Okay, so then it's even, so people that take high doses of vitamin C, sometimes you can have an arbitrarily low uric acid because vitamin C and uric acid are almost identical molecules.
Okay.
But for you, I would get, and especially if you're physically active, get yourself on, say, 500 milligrams or so of niacin. Good old-fashioned niacin. You can get a sustained release if you want to, but good old-fashioned, and take some branched chain amino acids with it.
Okay.
So if you take branched chain amino acids with your niacin, then you get bigger bang for your buck. You can get less than half your regular niacin dose, and so you can get to a lower flushing. So you can start with, say, 250 milligrams. Make sure you don't get too big of a flush. And sustained release can be better, but don't go to nicotinamide or any of the other fancy stuff. Just good old-fashioned niacin. Okay. And that'll bring that uric. So those three things. If you start taking niacin, some branched chain amino acids, DHA plasmalogens, and add some choline, like egg yolk oil or eggs into your diet type of thing, what you're going to find is, because eggs also have sphingomyelin in them, which is helpful. Your take-home your homework assignment, okay? Right. Your homework assignment is to get the ceramide levels down, Okay. Homocysteine between 8 and 10.
Okay.
And get this triglycerides under 100.
Okay.
And we want to get these HDLs over 60 and uric acid over 5.
Okay.
And simple, and basically, and you can, at your age group and my age group, whatever, I still recommend, even though your mitochondrial function looks great, keep up on a regular B vitamin. Okay. We should all be on those. And then the other one that people forget about is N-acetylcysteine, carnitine, and CoQ10. Those three things together really give mitochondrial capacity a boost. And you want to keep up on NAC. You just don't want to risk getting glutathione deficiencies.
Right.
And NAC, a gram or two of that a day. Take a couple capsules in the morning, a couple capsules in the afternoon or evening, and that's good. Especially if people like to go out and have a glass of wine or drink a little bit. They should always be taking N-acetylcysteine with that. And especially if they're taking any kind of pain meds, like anyone who's taken Tylenol in any way, shape, or form, they should be taking NAC with the Tylenol every time. Okay, because prevent liver toxicities. Acetaminophen is a very dangerous liver toxin.
Yeah.
And so N-acetylcysteine is the antidote for acetaminophen. So that's your tea leaf reading for the day.
All of the sponsors of this podcast are listed on the website at podofinquiry.com. You can get great offers on these fantastic products and services, and this will help generate revenue for the show, so that we can bring you the absolute best content. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show.
Several years ago, I chose Alpinion as my ultrasound brand of choice after years of experience and research into ultrasound imaging. In fact, I have 2 of their machines. Alpinion has incredible precision and penetration built into their technology that, in my opinion, is simply the best value in all of the ultrasound imaging space. They have several price points to meet your needs, and I can tell you definitively that you'll end up having to pay double to achieve the equivalent imaging quality from other top brands. That doesn't even account for the unlimited software updates and remote tech support included with no monthly fees. Right now, to show their appreciation for the listeners of the Pod of Inquiry, they're offering an incredible discount. Their portable i7 retails for $21,000, but you can get it discounted at most medical meetings for $19,000. But my listeners will get it discounted to $15,900. This has never been offered anywhere for the new portable system with the engine of a console system. Use code SBPOI to take advantage of this incredible offer. You won't be disappointed with Alpinion. I sure haven't been. All right, so
this is big, but just one thing though. This is actually not bad. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like, so we're not, you're not near death here and like that. Like this is generally a good, healthy profile for, you're right in the relatively normal range, and so we want to tweak you a little bit. Like, and that's the bottom line. Okay, we're trying to optimize.
So you've given me this homework assignment now, which I will be a diligent student and do what you've assigned. How long before I do another test to see if I've done my homework?
I typically get people to go for 3 months. The changes will happen much faster than that. We can restore most of all of this in less than a month. Okay. But I let people, if you test too quickly, you don't know if you've reached the new equilibrium yet or not, right? And so it's better to give a few months. And again, we're in this for life, longevity-wise, so people should relax a little bit. Our goal here is to get your system in a proper space so you don't obsess about it. And so you should be able to say, okay, now I've looked for the boogeyman under the bed, and I see where I need to optimize. And then once you've got your health where you want it, you should only have to check this once a year. Okay. All right. Keep an eye on it. All right. And then people should live their lives that they've covered a lot of their bases. I think obsessing over every single biomarker in our blood is not healthy.
No, I think that the obsession component is, sometimes we, get into the biohacking world and it's like, oh my God, look at this sleep score, how bad it was affected by a glass of wine. But I had a great time with that glass of wine, with that ribeye and those friends. So you have to kind of, have to, be, somewhat common sense about it too. So you have two of the Plasmalogen products, the Glia and the Neuro, right?
Yeah, for you, Neuro.
Neuro. Okay.
And you take it in the morning. If you want to take Glia at night for sleep and things, you'll improve the inflammation component.
Yeah.
Like I take Neuro in the morning and Glia at night. Okay.
Okay.
And then you'll notice the Neuro in the morning. Your workouts, your neuromuscular, your recovery rates will be better. Your cognitive functioning, like it's really, it's not a placebo. You take a relatively high dose of that, you're going to feel it, and you'll feel. I tell people Neuro is like this to your brain. Okay. Neuro just kind of, you feel expansion, like your lights are brighter, your brain is working, your neuromuscular function is working. It turns up that neurological volume. Glia is like this. Glia does this. And this is why for autism and ADHD, for people that, and so it really is anti-inflammatory. It reduces that neurological inflammation and it focuses people's attention. It calms them. And at nighttime, when you get that brain inflammation down, it's quite powerful. They go into deep REM sleeps. They wake up better. And so that's where the two plasmalogens kind of counteract. Like they're designed for different purposes, right?
Right.
So for you, clearly the Neuro is what your body needs, because you're probably burning it out a little bit with your exercise routines, right? That's the other thing I tell people with exercise. I tell people, remember, exercise is bad for you. Recovering from exercise is good for you.
Correct.
We exercise for the recovery. We are trying to train and adapt the body. We want to trick the body to thinking that it needs to perform at a higher level than it actually has to. So that when I'm not working out, when I'm just moving my mouse around my table here, I've created this excess capacity. I've created a reserve capacity of strength and resilience. And that's what exercise is about. So if people don't give themselves enough rest time between workouts, they lose the benefit of their working out. Especially in the elderly. Right. Like you really need to work out to failure if you want to. That's fine. Work out, but just give your body time to recover. And especially when you're dealing with the skeletal muscle improvements. In general, walking and good breathing and all that kind of stuff like that. Obviously, that's every day. You can do that anytime you want. But when you're trying to incrementally jack up, notch it up. As you're notching up your strength and resilience, that notch up part that does not occur while you're exercising, that occurs when you're recovering from your exercising.
Right. Well, and you get into the mindset with some of these athletes, especially the world-class athletes. It's so hard to get them to take a recovery day. It's just,
but then at least feed yourself. Right. Okay, like you've got to actually feed yourself. Like if you're going through, and when you're exercising and when you're athletic, or when you're inflamed, like you got diabetic neuropathy, you got diabetes, you have brain inflammation, okay, you are going to be going through more vitamins than a normal person goes through. Okay, inflammation eats up your vitamins. You will go through more B12. You will go through more B6. You will go through more glutathione. The inflamed body consumes vitamins. These vitamins that we take in our diet, they don't last forever. Okay, your body uses them. And so when your body is inflamed, you will go through just general run-of-the-mill vitamins faster. And that's why quite often these diseases, when we look at them and they say they have low levels, they don't have low levels because they're eating poorly. They could be, but mostly they have low levels because their inflammatory component is depleting them of it. Like when an autistic child has low B12, it's not because parent is malnourishing the child, is because the child's inflammation is going through twice as much B12 as a regular child. And so, you have to compensate for that.
Right. So, Dan, I think we need to tell the audience how they can find your wealth of resources, particularly your educational as well as your prodrome side, so they can get tested just like I did and realize how miserable I am and how I got to change this up. But, I think it's so powerful to have these biomarkers because it gives you it's an impetus for you to work at trying to get better or just trying to stay, status quo and not degenerate as you age more. So how do they get a hold of your training? It's at drgoodenowe.com.
Yeah, all the educational is at drgoodenowe.com. if you're a doctor or practitioner, we have a roundtable there. People get certified. Doctors share case studies. We do advanced education on a monthly basis. We talk about critical components of health. And then we have support groups we support groups for patient groups, so people can actually talk to others that are working on these things. So that's all at drgoodenowe.com. And then for those people that are prodrome.com is where different products are available, and that's where they can go for that.
And they would go that for the testing to that site, the Prodrome
Correct.
site.
Correct. Yeah, and the testing is done through certified practitioners.
Right. So, excellent. I really want to thank you. I appreciate your body of work so much and what you've done, and I'm honored to have you take this time to share with not only me but the audience. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. So, I hope to cross paths with you in the near future.
I look forward to it.
All right. Be well. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheers.
We hope you all enjoyed today's show and got some truly empowering knowledge out of it. You can always follow up on anything we talked about in the show notes, found at our website, podofinquiry.com. If this incredible and educational conversation has tickled just a little bit of your cortex, please leave us a review and spread the message to your friends and colleagues. Let's keep spelunking.
This podcast is designed for informational purposes only and does not constitute any medical or surgical consulting advice or imply a development of any physician-patient relationship. The opinions of guests who are featured on the show are not necessarily the opinions of Dr. Barrett or the production team. This podcast is owned solely by Barrett Medical and Surgical Media, LLC. While the show is highly oriented for physicians and healthcare providers, anyone interested in the improvement of human performance and understanding will find us a welcome goblet to sip from, or guzzle. However, no representation or warranties are made in any way whatsoever on this podcast for any products, techniques, or other things discussed. Invited guests are not vetted by the Pod of Inquiry for their qualifications and may have a direct or indirect financial interest in what they present and discuss on the show. The Pod of Inquiry disclaims any responsibility from anything taken from the show and used personally or professionally. It is a responsibility of the listener to perform their own due diligence prior to the implementation of any ideas, products, techniques, or anything talked about on the show.